Okay, I have 11 boxes of different sizes on this table. These are all the $5 records. So I'm going to kind of flip through them quickly just to give people an idea of what's in here. So I was starting to alphabetize them, so I've kind of got like the first 7 letters done, and then the rest is still completely mixed up. So we've got, and I will note that generally speaking, all the 80s records are going to be nice, higher grade. But 60s albums, of course, 50s, 60s are always hit and miss for condition, and then 70s is usually pretty nice, but again can be a bit of hit and miss because they're going to be 50 years old. All right, Adamant, Flock of Eagles, After the Fire, got a bunch of Air Supply. We've got Alessi Alda Nova from Canada, Rockstar, 80s. Al Jolson, cool ones from the 50s. Alan Parsons Project, 2 of their biggest albums. Alison Moyet, Alf, mid-80s, that one's hard to find. Al Martino, kind of like Frank Sinatra. Amy Stewart, Disco. Andreas Vollenweider, Andre Kostelanetz. Here's Art Garfunkel from Simon & Garfunkel. Asia, we've got the Association Greatest Hits, 1968 probably. That's a classic band of the mid-60s. A Taste of Honey, Funk Disco, Atlanta Rhythm Section, Avion, Band-Aid with Boy George, George Michael, etc. Barbara Streisand, a couple of her big 80s albums. Couple Barry Manilow's here, Bay City Rollers, Bo Water, some classic Bee Gees. They're actually quite popular now. Bette Midler, that one's a hard one to find. Bill Haley, this is an oldie. 1950s, this one never turns up anywhere. Bill Medley from the Righteous Brothers. Billy Ocean, his 2 big albums from the mid-80s. Billy Vaughn. Blondie's got a lot of popularity, but I keep them priced cheap just because, they're pretty common. Blood Rock Passage. Blues Image, this one's really rare, about 1970. Blue Jays, members of the Moody Blues. I don't know if you can see all these labels. The Blushing Brides. Bobby Curtola, one of Canada's biggest singers of the 60s. Bobby Goldsboro, Greatest Hits. That's a rare one from the 60s as well. Bobby Vinton, pop singer of the 60s. Bob Welch, classic from the late 70s. Bohannon, Boney M. Lots of demand actually for Boney M these days. People are thinking that's pretty fun again. Bonnie Tyler, Bonnie Nelson, Boz Scaggs Band, that's an older one of his before he hit it big, so that one's hard to find. Hits Boy Meet Girl, late 80s, that one's hard to find. The Buckinghams, a nice album from about 67. Burl Ives, Burton Cummings from Winnipeg. And Cheap Trick is really popular, but I keep these priced cheap just because, again, I always seem to find copies. We got Cliff Richard, who's England's biggest star after the Beatles, and he hit it big here in North America in the late 70s. Christopher Cross, classic album, 1980, I believe. Carola, Cerrone, Boy George and Culture Club, Climax Blues Band, The Commodore's Greatest Hits, Coney Hatch, Canadian, 80s, Charlie Peacock, another Culture Club, Chicago, Connie Francis hits, China Crisis, mid-80s. This one's autographed. Checkfield. Caledonia. Chicago's Greatest Hits. Carol Williams, Captain and Tennille. The Cars. Captain Tennille, Greatest Hits. Cleo Lane. Commodores with Lionel Richie. A couple of those. Chic. Classic Disco Funk. David Quinton. Diana Ross and Supremes. There's a few of her albums. Dwight Twilley, mid-80s. Danny Duma. Dan Fogelberg. That's pretty cool. A couple more Diana Ross. This is Dionne Warwick. A couple of hers. Dr. Strutt. A bunch of Diana Ross again. Dan Hill, Canadian classic singer-songwriter. Dark Room, that's Canadian. Dave Edmunds, classic rockabilly star. Dr. Hook, he's popular. Dionne Warwick again. Dobie Gray, Dutch Mason, that's a rare Dan Fogelberg double album. Here's Diana Ross, 1969. It's got Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5, and even Bill Cosby. This one's hard to find, pretty cool. The Deaf Boys, this is like, I don't know, probably some late 80s hip-hop of some sort. Dionne Warwick. Doobie Brothers classic from the mid-70s. Donna Summer Disco. Or Diana Ross. Don McLean. Photomaker. Foreigner, always popular classic late 70s rock. Feargal Sharkey, about 1986. That one's fairly hard to find. Bunch of Foreigner here. The Fifth Dimension, classic album, 1969, with Aquarius, the top song of that year. The Fix from 83, Frankie and the Knockouts. Frida, she is one of the members of ABBA, who went solo after ABBA broke up. So ABBA fans will like that one. Elaine Page, Stages, Earth, Wind and Fire, a couple of their albums, great soul, R&B from the late 70s. Eddie Money, classic rock. Everly Brothers, this is one of those rare ones. This would be early 60s printing. Greatest hits. Eurythmics with Annie Lennox, their classic album, 1984. Touch with Here Comes the Rain Again. Firefall, we got the Four Tops, Elton Motello. Eddie Money, Fifth Dimension, Friends of Distinction, 69. Greg Kihn Band, a couple of hits from the early 80s. Gino Sacchio, classic disco. Gladys Knight and the Pips, mid-70s R&B. Golden Avatar, I actually love this album. It's sort of a religious rock album from the mid-70s. It's just kind of really cool, kind of progressive rock. Grand Funk, live album, one of the biggest bands of the early 70s. Glenn Frey, member of the Eagles. Grease Lightning, his compilation. Gary Puckett, Union Gap, greatest hits, late 60s hits. Gary O, more Grand Funk. Greg Kihn, The Golden Ring. Gryphon. We've got Falco. And this is the classic one with Rock Me Amadeus and Vienna Calling, 1985. That one I don't see too often. Flash in the Pan, early 80s. Ginger Graham, George Baker Selection. That was a fun one, early 70s. Gina Vanelli, Canadian singer. Grammy Awards compilation. Glad. Herb Alpert, To Rise. This is his big disco album. Very cool. Heinji, this is classic German boy singer. He sold a lot of records, even in Canada. House of Random does Carpenter's hits. Hamilton, Joe Frank and Reynolds. Big pop band from the early 70s. Hall & Oates. Huey Lewis, classic album from 1983. Everybody likes this one. Those sell all the time. Helen Reddy. Heaven 17, kind of new wave, early 80s. Howard Jones, mid-80s, kind of new wave synth pop. More Hall & Oates. The Ink Spots. Ian Hunter from Moth the Hoople. Instructions, The Innocents. The Irish Rovers, classic The Unicorn, 1968. Some classic John Cougar albums here, and Jack Wagner, soap opera star, made a record. John Paul Young, pop dance star of the late 70s. Jimmy Castor Bunch, sort of funk R&B, early 70s. John Miles. Johnny Mathis, classic soft pop singer. John Denver, of course, classic star of the 70s. And Jonah Lewell, Jennifer Rush, 86, that one's hard to find. John Waite, that's also from about 85, I think. Jackson Browne, classic singer, songwriter of the late 70s. Another John Denver, John Cougar. Jody Watley, here's a 12-inch single with Eric B. and Rakim. That one's very hard to find. Janice Ian, late 70s. Jane Band, on some type of R&B, soul, maybe funk. More John Cougar. And then we got Kansas, classic, late 70s, progressive rock. Randy Meisner, I think he was in the Eagles, or Poco, maybe. Katrina and the Waves, classic album, 85. Walking on Sunshine. Level 42 from about 86. That one's hard to find. More Hall & Oates. Oh, Steve Perry. This is when the records are no longer alphabetical. They're mixed up. So Steve Perry, lead singer of Journey, went on his own. Oh, Sherry. Some Rod Stewart. We got Pat Benatar, stars in 45. Robert Palmer, Split Ends. Warrior and Scandal, 1984. The Red Crayola, there's a rare one. Robin Lane, the Chartbusters. Don't see that one ever. Johnny Mathis, Greatest Hits. 38 Special, mid-80s. Nightingales and Bombers. Rod Stewart. John Denver. Spondo Ballet. Rod Stewart. Hot Tuna. Gary Puckett. Now I'm finding it hard to read these because I have to dig in. Styx 2, one of their early albums. This one's actually harder to find. And then there's Equinox from Styx. This one's a little easier to find. More Rod Stewart, Robert Palmer, Rick Springfield, The Lucy Show, Sutherland Brothers, The Nylons from Canada, Nat King Cole, Sheena Easton, early 80s, Little Richard's greatest hits, all 50s hits. That's pretty cool, hard to find. Jane Fonda's workout record, 80s, Powder Blues Band for some good classic Canadian blues, Jefferson Starship, which was Jefferson Airplane, Jack Green, early 80s, Tom Franzak, radio station compilation, that'll be hard to find, Warren Zevon, is that Billy Vaughn? Kim Carnes, classic 1981, Hometown Band, Petulia Clark, greatest hits, Olivia Newton-John, Greatest Hits Volume 2, that's a good album, lots of great songs. Jack Green, Superstars, that's a double album hits of the 70s. Loggins and Messina, that's Kenny Loggins. Jackson Hawk, Michael Zager Band, Love. Shakin' Stevens, Big Star from England in the 80s. Okay, so I've done, just to show you where we're at, that was that much. That's the first 3 rows, and then there's still all this. So I think you get the idea of what's here. It's just, as I say, it's either common records by popular bands or just kind of a little bit more obscure stuff. Some gems in here, though. And as I say, all the 80s albums will be really nice condition. Only the older ones, of course, are hit and miss. So you get an idea. Oh, there's Wham. We got Pointer Sisters, Ricky Lee Jones, Jackson Browne, Little River Band, some more disco. Linda Ronstadt. I'm just trying to, it's hard to read. I got these boxes so full. Wayne Newton, some more compilations. Julian Lennon, The Manhattans, Laura Branigan, Shakin' Stevens, Dean Martin, Roger Whittaker, and Night Ranger, The Ventures, Ricky Lee Jones, Oscar, Melissa Manchester, Neil Diamond, The Platters, Tina Marie, Romantics, that's a cool one. And yeah, Peter Cetera from Chicago, Little River Band, Peeble Bryson, another Romantics, Barbra Streisand, Hughes Corporation, Voyager, James Last, Lou Rawls, Paul Anka, REO Speedwagon, there's a couple of theirs I think in here, including their biggest album, Pablo Cruz, Lake, Rod Stewart,